Ready?
Yep, good.
Yep.
Coming up this week, things are getting dark and wet. And if you know, you know. It's Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Season 4, right here on your Star Wars Safe Space. Stick around. Hey, howdy there, Star Warriors. Welcome to Star Wars Safe Space, your non-toxic, low-sodium Star Wars show that doesn't make you feel bad for not knowing that THX 1138 was the very first film George Lucas ever directed and is referenced several times throughout Star Wars lore. So whether you're a hardcore fan or just a little swarzy curious, this is indeed your Star Wars Safe Space. And we are the Circle of Nerds, and we do absolutely love Star Wars, even if we don't always like it. So let's meet the crew, shall we? From my left, your right, pilot of the infamous Parma Flyer, it's Crash.
Hi, everybody. S-Foil's locked and ready to go. Let's do it.
There you go, there you go. And hailing from parts unknown, it is T to the Oni.
Welcome back to the galaxy, everybody. Hope you all had a good holiday.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that too. Yeah, thank you for reminding me because I totally forgot we had a holiday. And I am Tommy D, your more than slightly obnoxious Star Wars know-it-all. So what are we doing here? Well, it's very simple. Our mission is to watch all of the canon Star Wars films and TV shows in chronological order, mostly, breaking them down, connecting the dots, and learning a little more about Star Wars and maybe even about ourselves. Isn't that just warm and fuzzy? So word of warning, to all of you would-be Star Warriors, there will be spoilers. So we're going to get into it. We're going to be looking ahead to Season 4. But first, the news. Crash, you got something for us?
Sadly, I do. Over the holiday, we lost Angus McInnes, who played Gold Leader in A New Hope. He was the leader of the Y-Wing Squadron. So I had to bring out my little Y-Wing to represent. I met him at my first Star Wars celebration. Cool guy. And then, we talked a lot. I actually patterned my Rebel pilot costume. Tommy remembers me when I used to troop with the Rebel Legion.
Yeah.
My X-Wing helmet was done in Gold Leader style, but in our squadron colors. And I was really proud of that. I actually got to meet him again after I got out. I got a picture with him in the helmet, and I have told him, like, man, this is because of you. And I love Y-Wings. And I thought, they were cool. I like the bombers. So I was like a little sad to hear that when he passed, because he was a really good guy. And it's just one of those things that you make a connection with some of these people that you see on these movies. And he was a good dude, and he'll be missed.
All right. And was he a fan? Was he one of us? Do you think?
I think so. He was, he was very personal. He understood the fandom has a lot of nitpicky trivia things that people like to ask about, and whatnot. He doesn't have the answer to say everything, but I think he appreciated. He did tell me the second time I saw him, we were talking about how they worked him into Rogue One and how they used old footage that they'd shot back in the 70s, and he did some ADR voice recording.
Oh, that's cool.
So that, when you don't see him on camera, and he said that's fresh dialogue, but the footage you saw of him was digitally enhanced stuff from the 70s, so that they could work in the original Red Leader and Gold Leader in the movie that's like taking place just hours before New Hope. So he kind of bookended the saga. He even had a cameo in the sequel trilogy as part of the First Order. He was Rise of Skywalker. He was one of the First Order officers in that briefing conference room.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So his family put out a statement the Christmas Eve, I think, saying that he had passed away, and got shout out to the Wishbones out there.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Parma Flyer is a Y-Wing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's sort of my unofficial nickname for, like I said, when I was a character in the Rebel Legion, my ship, I called it the Parma Flyer. So,
love it.
Yeah, shout out to Gold Leader.
Love it. Oh man. And I have to say, Rogue One was really cool for that. Like, when they did digitally, I mean, because Red Leader was in there. I mean, we had all of the original X-Wing and Y-Wing pilots represented. Because like you said, this, the events of Rogue One, well, at the end of Rogue One, it takes place just maybe hours before the events of A New Hope, if not sooner, maybe less than an hour. I mean, Vader was hot on Leia's tail.
True.
That was a great way to tie in the two movies. And I think John Knoll said in an interview one time, like, he pitched the idea for Rogue One to Kathleen, and basically it was like, it says in the scroll, the first real victory for the against the what if it was stealing the Death Star plans, and how did that come about? It was a great way to tie in a new movie with something that's been established for well over 40 years.
Yep, I agree. And it was a great movie. I didn't care for the Leia and Tarkin CGI, but they I don't know. I think we could have done without that. We didn't necessarily need to see that crazy uncanny valley creepy Princess Leia, but I don't know. That's me being a nitpicky fan, because other than that, it's up there. It's my number 2 Star Wars film. Like, out of all of the films, it's my number 2. Rogue One is just a great Star Wars film. Absolutely love it. I mean, we based the intro of this show on the infamous hallway scene, which also divides fans. There's a lot of fans that find the hallway scene to be like really hokey and corny, and just, I don't know. A lot of fans don't like that hallway scene. And I don't know why. If you're listening, if you're watching, please comment. Let us know if you don't like the hallway scene in Rogue One. Tell us why. Because for me personally, that is exactly how I always wanted to see Vader. Like, we get to see Anakin being a complete badass and a savage. We get to see Luke eventually being a badass and a savage, but not until The Mandalorian. But we never really get to see Vader really being scary as fuck. And Rogue One gave us that. And people kind of poo-poo on the hallway scene.
I think there's I'm kind of in between. I see both sides of the coin. I think there's this element of the fandom. It's sort of just the nostalgia for that entrance of Vader. Everybody talks about how Vader's an iconic character in cinema history. That shot of him walking in, was on all the storybooks when we were kids.
Mm-hmm.
It was the image you had of Vader. Your literally first image of him. And that was after the stormtroopers. The shock troopers went in and busted up the hallway defenders. So the idea that, maybe Vader took the first swing, it was, got through first, and needed to take a breather, had to dial up the asthma machine or something. I think that's maybe the only reason people kind of like, hey, I had this image of Vader, smoke and Vader whooshing in and all. Why didn't he just come in and tear up some more guys like he does in Rogue One? That's the only reason I can see people having a problem with it, because you're right. It is peak Vader to see him with a lightsaber just plowing through guys with blasters that have no idea that they're already screwed.
Right. And I'm looking something up right now, but it's you bring up an interesting point too about that image of Vader, where we just see him like silhouetted, and it's just him and his lightsaber. And it reminded me of the cover for Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling it up here. I'll see if I can drop it in, but it's his saber wasn't out. But that was the first sequel. to Star Wars. That came out in 78, I think. That was like our first EU book. And then it ended up being like decanonized.
It was a backup plan in case the movie flopped.
Right. It was a great book. I encourage everyone to read it. It's a great book. You know, we hadn't worked out yet that Luke and Leia were brother and sister, so there's a little Game of Thrones going on in there a little bit.
It just hurts to think about sometimes. You're just like, oh.
But oh man, where is it? Where's my where's the image? Oh my god, I just lost it. But anyway, I'm gonna have to cut all this out because I cannot multitask like at all. Clearly. So
silhouetting, Vader silhouette.
Yes. So the hallway scene, again, I don't know why it gets so much hate, because I absolutely, positively, 100% love the hallway scene in its entirety. Like, it's just, everything about it is just so freaking badass. I can't stand it. I mean, it's like, you hear the breath, the lightsaber ignites as the music starts, and he's just saucing the hell out of people left and right. And the one trooper, he's just beating on the door. Help us, somebody help us. Like, that terror of seeing this giant wheezing black armored, demon, with an archaic weapon that you haven't ever seen before. A lot of those guys, they'd never seen a lightsaber before. This is 18 years after Order 66, 19 years ish after Order 66. So some of these guys probably never saw a lightsaber. Even if they were alive during the time of the Jedi, the likelihood of them even encountering a Jedi was slim. So now here you've got this scary, like I said, very demon-like entity walking down the hall and just destroying your buds. I mean, like, an hour ago, you guys were kicking it in the cantina on the ship, and now Vader just takes Ralph, force pushes him to the ceiling, and then cuts him in half. And it's like, what? Mr. Vader, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We got on the wrong ship. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I swear. But and then I think at the end when he's just like, launch. Oh, I love it. Tony, please.
So I think that, like, I love that scene too. Don't get me wrong. I do understand though why some people might have a problem with it, because like now if you're looking at it, like, as an original person, when you first see, okay, yeah, cool. So in episode 4, you see, okay, again, the troopers have already taken out most of the guys, and then Vader walks in, and you see Leia standing up to him and being her badass self. And it's okay, I can see that, because we as an audience haven't seen Vader do all of that stuff yet.
Right.
So it's we know he's the bad guy, we know he's a threat, but we don't know to what extent he is. So like, and again, like, we're literally talking maybe an hour's time from the time that he has that hallway scene to when he's confronting Leia. And I'm sorry, if I'm Leia, and I've experienced and heard this whole commotion, this whole hallway scene, I'm not standing up to him. I don't care how badass of a princess I am. Like, if that guy is threatening me, you win. Do whatever you got.
Right? It's like, my bad, big guy. It's like, calm down.
Vader had a very submissive persona. Like, Tarkin talked down to him in the movie. Some of the officers, even the guy he choked, sort of like disrespected him in a way.
Oh, absolutely. He's like, Vader, release him. And then don't try to frighten us with your sorcerer's ways, Lord Vader. It's like, motherfucker, you've been around long enough You know, that guy was old enough to remember the Clone Wars, and he probably had served in the Clone Wars in some capacity. So it's like, wait, Vader was like, maybe you forgot who I am. Let me choke this into you here real quick. But to see him get that physical, you know, that's not something that we had seen, nor would we see. We wouldn't see. I mean, until Empire. But even in Empire, it was really a one-sided fight, and he was still not like going off. You know,
he was toying with Luke in many ways. You know, he wasn't like showing his full strength until the end when Luke clips him on the shoulder, and
then he's like,
it was like, okay, fuck it, this kid's toast.
Yeah,
you know?
But he knew his name. He knew that was his son. So I mean, I think he was still trying to not kill him. But I mean, he doesn't really have a good track record for not killing children. So I mean,
well, and as we know, Anakin Vader well knows, hands can be replaced
easily. So all right. Anyway, we're supposed to be talking about the Clone Wars, but that's what happens when you get people who love Star Wars talking about Star Wars. So, season 4, Clone Wars. We've already watched seasons 1 through 3. We've watched a few other things, but I think Tony, have you seen all of season 4? I don't know. I
have seen none of season 4.
Okay, so I know at some point in the Clone Wars series, we would be in uncharted territory for you because you'd seen 1 through 3, right?
And prior to us starting to watch it, I had not seen any of it.
Oh, so this is all brand new to you. Okay, cool. Excellent. So seasons 1 through 3, the episodes jump around quite a bit as we learned. So despite us trying to watch everything in chronological order, Dave, our Lord and Savior Filoni, he did kind of throw us for a loop once or twice or 10 times. Season 4, however, it maintains its chronological and release order. So that's very nice. Ooh. So we're going to be watching all of season 4 chronologically in its entirety. Plus, we're going to be watching Tales of the Empire episode 1 because chronologically that does fall in during season 4. So we're going to be watching that as well. So Tony, up to this point, and Crash, I'm sure you could probably agree with me on this. Up to this point, the Clone Wars have been fun, and there's been a few heavy moments, but shit's about to get real. I mean, Crash, would you agree with that? I mean, I feel like the series as a whole really starts to get like really. This is when people are when they start saying that the Clone Wars is dark and gritty and not a kids show, and then they get made fun of for saying that Clone Wars is dark and gritty. I think they forget about how things kick off here with season 4.
Yeah, I agree. This is, I want to say, the dividing line, but this was a part where the older audience was starting to make their voice known about, okay, we like that we're cool that it's animated. We like that, Star Wars is for kids, but give us something a little deeper, a little darker. Umbara is a metaphor for darker stories, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
But I think this was the season where, now that Dave sort of had a turn around the galaxy or two with the first couple seasons, we've established who's who and what's what. Now it was time to really put a signature on it. And I think some of these, we were just before the show, we were kind of planning out what our homework was going to be. And it's really going to be a case of building around the particular arc of episodes. A 3-episode arc, a 4-episode arc, in some cases, you think about it as a viewer, that's almost a month of episodic television where you see like the first episode, you got to wait a week for the next episode, and then wait a week for the next. There were some cliffhangers, even little ones, and And as a younger viewer, I'm sure it was exciting because it's like reading a comic book and you get to that last page and it says to be continued. You can't wait for the next issue to come out because it's real easy now afterwards to binge watch a show and you go, okay, here's plot A to plot B to plot C. But when you got to wait that week and you got to talk about it with your friends in the playground and go, hey man, did you see what happened on Umbara?
Right.
Or did you see what happened in the Mon Cal episode?
Mm-hmm.
There's some great stuff that happens there. There's some great you're starting to see a shift in Anakin's personality.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking a little turn to the dark side in some spots.
Mm-hmm.
Your friend, your buddy Papa Palpatine, is pulling on the strings in certain ways. I think you're going to find out. And this is when it really started to cook. I said that last season, but as far as in terms of these long story arcs, it's good. I promise you, Tony, it's going to get good, and it's going to get good quick.
Yeah,
I mean, I've already thought that's been good. Don't get me wrong, but I am looking forward to seeing it, get a little bit more serious. Of course, seasons 1 through 3 had their moments of seriousness, but
sure.
But I am definitely intrigued by this. One thing that I am going to try to do for this season that I haven't done in the past is, I've always been, and I've talked about this before on the show, that I've always been a binge watcher. Like I rarely ever have the patience to just sit and watch an episode of something and then have to wait. But one thing that I'm going to try to do, especially for this season, is not do that. Sit down, watch one episode, and at least give myself like an hour to think about it and really come to terms with what I've watched and make my expectations for what's going to come in the next one before I sit down and watch that next one, and really like let that suspense build up in me. So
that's a good way to look at it. I remember watching them when they first aired. It's interesting. It's great watching them without the Cartoon Network commercials because some of these other shows they used to have was like I could feel my brain melting. But when you get on Disney Plus now and you can kind of okay, I'm going to watch, like we were talking about earlier, the episodes, the Mon Cal arc, 1, 2, 3. Watch the first one. It's going to end on a cliffhanger, and enjoy the cliff. Enjoy the moment of, I don't know what's going to happen. We know certain characters have plot armor because they're going to be in Revenge of the Sith, but you want to see how they get out of this. And that's what really sells some of these arcs. We've hinted at it before. I don't want to give too much away. The Umbara arc alone is effing cinema.
We hype it so much. I mean, we hype it so much, but it's worth the hype.
And you're gonna. I remember watching it when it first aired, and there's a moment that happens. I was man tearing because you get so connected to these clones, and the bonds they have. There's going to be a moment that's, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. It just breaks your heart.
I'm not gonna lie. I was ugly crying. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna try to stand on airs. I was ugly crying over a cartoon. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm not ashamed to admit it because it's just like you said, this is cinema. This is so it's a master stroke of storytelling. And it's for an animated series. Is it as heavy as something like Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan? I think when people are like, the Clone Wars are dark and gritty, and then you get made fun of for saying that. I don't think anyone is under any illusions that this is as heavy as some of these other IPs out there. I mean, of course, this is not Band of Brothers. This is not Saving Private Ryan. It's not that heavy. It's not that dark and gritty or whatever. But for an animated series that is meant for that teen and preteen audience, as an adult, you can still watch it and still get all the feels. Especially it Crash, like you said, as you start becoming emotionally invested, in some of these characters. So I mean, when we see that, and this was 2011, 2012, I think when this, yeah, 2011, when the season came out. So I was a younger man, but
Weren't we all?
weren't we all? But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for what we see, like, at all through the whole. I mean, there are still some corny moments. There are some corny bits, but not nearly as many. Like if you do a Google search, if you just go into Google and you type in Star Wars or Clone Wars season 4, and it's going to bring up the episodes, and there's, the little thumbnail pictures, just the little thumbnails alone. It's just like everything is just so dark. Everything is so moody, and it's just like, what is about to happen? And I think it's at this point, I think Dave is like, all right, childhood's over. Like,
and you'll see that in, I won't give anything specific away, but as Ahsoka grows through the Clone Wars, I found it interesting that, her outlook on things gets a little dark. Things are a little more serious for her. It's not all, snarky comments and quips with Anakin. It's like, girl's been through some stuff, and that's starting to wear on her, and you'll see that in various episodes.
I really would love to get Ashley on the show. We spoke with Ashley. I've spoken with her a few times. First time I talked to her was in Celebration Europe, and she had just launched the Her Universe line. So she was actually just chilling. They had a little pop-up shop inside the convention center. So she was just there hanging out. I didn't even really realize who it was at first, because especially there in Europe, in Germany, she's not a big deal because she doesn't do the voice, obviously, for German. She doesn't do the German voice of Ahsoka. So, but I got to talk to her again at Fan Expo up there in Boston, and we talked to her about the show. We told her about the show, and she was really interested in it because it's, we're doing something positive. So I got her contact information, and we got to get her on. Because we got to get her on to talk about Ahsoka and her journey.
Yeah, we were talking Sherry. Working behind the scenes. I too, for years I've known Ashley since the beginning of Her Universe, and like I said, my sister is like a 10th level Padawan of hers. We saw her at Steel City over the holidays, and she's still amazing. She still gets like a huge line of people wanting to meet her, and she'll spend as much time as she can, like, with every one of them. I heard a guy grumbling in line. Hi, Mr. DEI complainer. Hi, I was the guy with the VIP badge. Complaining about how, this is just a kid show. But he had something he wanted to get signed because he was trying to complete an item with everybody, and you could just tell. But I mean, she loves their fans. She loves the Clone Wars fans because she knows, everything she's got going for her right now with Her Universe and all this, voice work she's doing came from Ahsoka, and she's very upfront. And she's a fan too. I love talking to her as a fan because she gets us, and she'd be a great person to have on the show just for tell us your tale. What do you think?
I would love for us to sit down with like her and Sam at the same time, and it'll end up being a fucking 2-hour long show because and Sam Witwer, another one. I mean, he is another one who is a fan, and he knows his shit.
Oh, he is so smart.
I feel like that guy, he's forgotten more Star Wars than I'll ever know. And Dave as well. I would love to sit down with Dave because Dave is a fan. Dave played with Star Wars toys as a kid, sitting in his bedroom and now he's playing with the fucking coolest collection of Star Wars toys ever. And I don't know if we'll ever get Dave on the show, but we gotta get Ashley on at least, because I do feel like as we're going through the Clone Wars, we always seem to come back to Ahsoka and her journey, because as much as the Clone Wars are about Anakin and the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, it's also really, really about Ahsoka's journey from little snips, to this fucking badass but sad Ronin that we see portrayed by Rosario Dawson. This whole evolution of Ahsoka Tano I'm getting a little choked up, actually. She's such an amazing character. She is such an amazing character, such a cool, well-written character who has arguably more growth than any other Star Wars character, I would say. You can talk about people's redemption arcs and all that, but in terms of like this sweeping growth, I mean, it's Ahsoka, and we're still not done. We're still not done with Ahsoka. I mean, there's still more stories to come. So I'm looking forward to it so much. And we get more clones. I think up to this point too, there was a lot of complaining that, this is the Clone Wars. We're not seeing a lot of that. But brothers and sisters, do we get our fair share of clones here in season 4?
And different environments and different, there were some episodes, I'm sure Tony would agree. There were certain stretches where you could tell things kind of got bogged down in the political weeds, Jedi, mystical side of things. For a show called The Clone Wars, every once in a while, it's good just to throw a bunch of clone troopers out there and a bunch of battle droids out there and just say, go nuts.
Yeah. And we have to tell the story of Anakin and Obi-Wan and Palpatine. Those stories have to be told because they're relevant, of course. But yeah, I want to see more clones. So Tony, as someone who is fresh and new to all of this, I have to ask, what are your hopes, your dreams, your expectations for season 4, if we haven't already ruined it for you? Because
no, not at all. I mean,
excited about it.
And I think I say this at the start of every season. My biggest thing is I want to see the character growth. I want to see these arcs. I want to see how they go from where they are now to where they end up. Mm-hmm. And I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. You're going to get it.
And
we got Mandalorians. And we got Mandalorians too. I forgot. We got some Mandos.
Yeah.
I gotta step away.
Okay.
Be right back.
There was a lot of Mandos, the arcs for a while, and then we kind of get away from that because we're covering other parts of the galaxy. So yeah, this is a great time to kind of revisit that side of the galaxy too.
It's just I'm so excited. Like, I've been like holding back rewatching this season because I want to watch it together. I want to watch together. So I'm hoping that some of our viewers and some of our listeners are also new with the show, and you're also going to be watching it together with us. Because there's also a lot that I've forgotten, so I mean, there's, I've seen the Clone Wars in its entirety maybe 3 times. I think I've watched it. But again, it's like maybe every few years I'll watch some of it. And so there's a lot I've forgotten. So, but I'm excited for people to see it with fresh eyes, like Tony.
Right. And because I admit, since I've come on this show, I told you off camera one time, I was like, I've watched these things so many times. I'm an angry binge watcher. If I was like, I feel like Clone Wars, I got to start at season 1 and just chow through each season, because I'm like, oh man, I can't skip season 2. There was that thing here, and there was this thing here, and it's just there's a flow to the way this show grows over time that you watch them in completion and in sequence, and like we talk about story arcs, the 3-4 episodes that all are relevant to each other. You got to watch all 3 or 4 of them, otherwise you miss that little. And Dave's telling they're mini movies. It's almost like the Disney Plus shows, where people online complain, oh, I can't get into, say, Skeleton Crew like we talked about on the other show, because it's only 30-40 minutes long. Yeah, but it's 8 episodes of good Star Wars content broken down, because we, the audience, have such a short attention span now.
It's very true.
That they've realized, okay, we can't just put out a trilogy of feature-length films, because you people have to be on your phones every 10 minutes saying, what happened here? Oh my God, did you see that? They're breaking it down for us. They're breaking it down for us like a fraction, because they realize a lot of the audience can't sit through an Avengers Endgame marathon every other day.
Or a 5-hour Lord of the Rings extended director's cut.
I love Peter Jackson's enthusiasm for that IP, but my God, man, I have to pee.
Right. And so it's like, I agree. I agree 100%. I am very, very grateful. And I'm very thankful that we're getting things in bite-sized, easily digestible chunks like this. I would have liked for Skeleton Crew to be a little bit longer in terms of episode length.
Closer to that 50-minute hour, like basic TV kind of setup would have been nice.
But it works the way that it is now. Everything is very snappy with the pacing. Like the Acolyte. I liked the Acolyte. I know, people get crucified for saying that, but not on this show, you won't. But one thing that probably my biggest complaint about the Acolyte was the pacing. The pacing of the episodes was a little bit janky sometimes. And
I just rewatched that over the holidays, and I agree. It's a great, again, it's like I said on the other show about Skeleton Crew. Acolyte was great. It would not have been a great movie up against Top Gun Maverick or whatever was coming out that time of year, where it would have been, middle tier of the box office. It would have been a flop.
Potentially.
You'd never hear about it, because you just can't rally the entire Star Wars fandom to go, hey, go check out this this new movie every year. I think one of the few mistakes Disney did make since their takeover was this new the sequel trilogy and then the anthologies in between. A new movie a year was tough, especially when they're like trying to announce a Star Wars celebration every year to promote it. That's hard on the wallet, guys. Mickey, me out.
But I think Acolyte could have worked as a movie. I think it could have worked as a movie. I think I would have been cool watching an 1.5, 2-hour movie of the Acolyte that ends on a cliffhanger with the prospect of maybe another movie in a couple of years. But I'm happy with what we got, and I do agree. I think that the TV series, doing it in that format, it's just easier. Each episode costs as much as a whole fucking movie. So it's not like they're skimping out on anything,
and compare that to Strange New Worlds. I'm watching season 2 of that now.
So good.
And that's another tricky thing where there's so many streaming services now that I think part of the problem, people look at I don't know how they do streaming ratings, but the word is that the ratings for like a show like Skeleton Crew are low. Well, it's low because there's so many platforms now. There's so many streaming shows now that people can't. You got to commit to something and exclude everything else, because I don't know about you. I don't have the attention span to watch, one show and then jump to another show, then jump to another. I'm a binger. I do like to watch. When I watch, like I said, when I watch Clone Wars, I start season 1. I don't stop till the end, because I want to take it all in. I don't like jumping timelines and stuff like that.
Right.
But even with Strange New Worlds, I think they only have maybe, I think it was 8 or 9 episodes,
something like that. Yeah.
For the kind of production budget, that show is like top tier. Those sets are immaculate.
10
and the amount of same, and that's what happened with Acolyte. They wanted feature length, top tier looking production quality. but you're breaking it down into short, shorter chapters for everybody to stop and what's trending, what's tweeting. I don't think the audience has the attention span they did back in the original trilogy days, where you could take 2 years off between Star Wars films.
No, we got it. I mean, they got to keep. I mean, and there's a lot of hate on Disney Star Wars, again, because of DEI and wokeness or whatever they want to complain about. But like, we have to be realistic. Disney is in the business of making money. That's their business. Their business isn't entertaining children. Their business isn't entertaining people. Their job is making money through entertainment. So they're not gonna do things just for the sake of entertaining you. They're good. There has to be money behind it, and they have to be smart about it. And I think that, like with the Acolyte, I think that the Acolyte was it was poorly marketed. I think it tried too hard to be too many things and didn't always get everything right. But I think that they saw that it was hard. It's like when people talk about, like, if you want to start a YouTube channel, for example, and they say, if you start a YouTube channel about cars, and then, one day you get, a cool hat in the mail and you decide to do an unboxing about the hat, your viewers are used to seeing stuff about cars. You do car stuff, not hat stuff. So if you're all over the place, there's nothing for them to grab onto. And I think that was the problem with the Acolyte, is like, there wasn't like, what do I grab onto here? But with Skeleton Crew,
do you jump? Do you invest yourself emotionally in this, as we find out later, flawed Jedi, and who kind of got a little obsession here that he made a mistake, and you're like, you make that your lead character? Do you make the assassin twin, who's like kind of abusive to her sister when they were little, about we have to stay together. I will kill you if you don't. If you try to leave me, I'll burn the house down. Is she, is that your focal point? There were a lot of people that weren't the focal point of that show, and there was nothing really to kind of, who was this story about? Was this about May? Was this about Osha? Was this about
it was about all of them.
Yeah.
And that was I think that was one of the problems. It was like giving us like way too much to try to absorb. Again, the show was not without flaw, but that doesn't mean that it was worthless. It still had its moments. I'm actually very disappointed we're not going to find out, more about Darth Smiley, more about the twins. Was that Plagueis at the end? I mean, we're not going to know now. I mean, we might find out in novelization or comics, maybe, but we're not going to see it on the screen anytime soon, unfortunately. But but Skeleton Crew, man, they knocked it out of the park. I mean, they knocked it out of the park. There's nothing. I have no criticism, like at all. I can find something to criticize and critique in everything. I have no criticism. There's nothing. There's like, what, in I guess it was episode 6, when they're on the resort world and they get shot out of those tubes and they're walking around in the snow and nobody really complains about being cold or anything. I mean, I guess I can complain about that. I mean, that's not, or when they're on that moon and they go to see Kim, how is their gravity and atmosphere on this? But yeah. That's reaching so hard that
you're looking for a reason to be angry, basically.
I'm looking for a reason to be, and I just can't find one. I cannot find a reason to be mad at Skeleton Crew.
And this was the same way with Clone Wars. I remember back in the days on the fan forums, and even within the costume group. You and I, Tommy and I, could have an interesting conversation about that. But on the forums, even within the groups, there was a bit. This was around this time of the season for the show. There was still a little resentment about this being an animated. There were people who were diehard original trilogy fans, who just couldn't process the idea that Star Wars was animated. Stormtroopers were better than clone troopers because stormtroopers were real, or and even costume wise, when Tommy moved back here to Ohio, I was giddy because first thing I saw was he had a Captain Rex, and we were doing events, and I'm a pilot, a rebel pilot, or I'd be a Jedi, but I could interact with the kid. I wasn't very in character. I was sort of that bridge between the normals and the ones who try to play act. But I would talk to the kid. Oh, did you see Clone Wars this week, man? Yeah. Where's Rex? And I'd have to make up some excuse where we used to do a laser tag event. We'd get the guys dressed up. They'd put on laser tag vests, and we'd let the kids shoot us for cheer. You would have been a rock star. I would have paid money to borrow your armor just to be dual wielding Captain Rex, pew 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 in a laser tag arena.
We did that. I mean, we're getting way off topic here, but
that's okay.
But when we were prior to moving back to the States, we were stationed in Germany, and we did this thing years and years ago, the 501st, and I'm sure they did this thing called Shoot a Trooper.
Mm-hmm.
And just get some Nerf guns and you shoot at people dressed up like stormtroopers for charity. With a rise in gun violence, they decided to move away from that. And the German garrison said, we can't do something called Shoot a Trooper. And we can't do anything where we're encouraging people to shoot at our people. So we ended up having to do it without the approval of the garrison. So we ended up having to do it. We couldn't have any 501st or garrison merchandise or logos or anything like that showing. So we had to be basically like independent contractor nerds. And we called it the Galactic Showdown. And I did that. I kitted up in Rex, and we got people with Nerf guns to shoot at me. They paid money, but we ended up raising, we did it over a weekend, and we ended up raising like over $10,000 for the local Fisher House.
Oh, wow.
And that was like, we did it on base inside of the BX, and we raised over 10 grand. Me, Louie, and a couple of our other friends. We kitted up, and the German garrison was mad. They didn't want us to do it, but we can do whatever we want in our costumes that we bought and paid for, and you can't say anything about it as long as we don't have any 501st branding, which we didn't. But one person showed up wearing their 501st jacket.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't participating. They were just there. They weren't even a handler. They were just somebody out of costume. They showed up. They had their 501st jacket on, and they wanted to kick me out. I ended up getting suspended for
another fraternity, brother.
Right. I ended up getting hit with a 6-month suspension because I went against the garrison CO, who, like most garrison COs they're so fucking full of themselves anyway. I'm not going.
Anyways, tying this back to the point we were
anyway, let me just say, I love the 501st. I love the Rebel Legion. I love the Mando Mercs for what they represent. I love the fact that they're charity organizations. And I love the fact that they are working to reach out and interface with the community, and that these costume clubs do a lot of really, really good work. They raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for charity. So despite the individual little power trips and things like that go on, as organizations, I believe in the ideals. I believe in the concept behind the clubs.
The concept is great. The execution gets a little murky, and Tommy and I will be starting a podcast where we will spill tea on both sides of the.
Oh shit! Okay. Look, Tony's about to check out. He was like, "All right, I'm not in the 501st. I don't have a kid. I'm
not, but I like the stories. It's fun."
But that's I like to tell. There's a certain element of when these shows aired, versus how they were received at the time by the fandom, by the groups.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of saying, there were people who were, for lack of a better term, Princess Leia obsessed, hated they hated Clone Wars because who cares about Padme? Who cares about Anakin? It was always how it affected them, and there's and as not just casting groups, but I remember, like I said, during the prequel trilogy, the fan forums, fanforce.net kind of forums, where the internet sort of opened the doors to the entire fandom, and it wasn't just your circle of nerds that you talk to.
Right.
It was some creepy guy. I kid you not. Short story. We had a guy here in Cleveland. I was the head of the Cleveland chapter, and I had to be like Mr. Polite to everybody, even if you were like the most rude, obnoxious person in the world. There was a guy. We called him Pervert Scott, if that gives you an idea.
Oh my God.
He was a plus one. He wasn't even a member of the group. He was somebody's plus one that they kept bringing. And we got like a private screening for all the work we'd done at the opening weekend for Revenge of the Sith. The movie manager said, "Hey, your last night here, you guys go into Theater 13. It's on us." Well, somebody, one of our members brought Pervert Scott along to my private screening, and I'm sitting there, we're watching, and all I hear is all these rude, under his breath, like strip club, creepy guy comments he's making about Padme, and I'm just like, dude, if I didn't have to be the designated nice guy, I'd be throwing your ass out of here.
Pervert Scott. The Adventures of Pervert Scott.
Yeah. And that's the problem with the fandom menace over time. It sort of evolved into that where on Twitter and other platforms where the more toxic you could be drew more toxicity to you.
Absolutely.
The sequel trilogy got a lot of hate gets clicks, and when you go on a forum and say how much you hate Rey, she's a Mary Sue, blah blah blah, my mom hates me, whatever. That draws attention from other dudes who also want to be, they want to seek attention for that, and they'll play off of their worst instincts, whereas people who actually genuinely enjoy Star Wars, whether it's, if you find something like we say on this, the intro, whether you like it or not, whether it's, whether you think it's good or not, enjoy. I always say, to people coming into Star Wars, like Tony, he's watching Clone Wars for the first time, enjoy the ride. There may be an arc that doesn't quite play for you as well, that like you've heard us talk about the Umbar arc, or
Sure.
A particular episode may not hit with you as well as it does. Enjoy the ride, because that's, I swear I should put on a t-shirt, filler episode is prologue for Dave Filoni, because that's what he'll take a little thing that he played with in season 2, and now all of a sudden it's a bigger deal. And we're going to find out this year with the Mandalorians, there's going to be something that's going to come back that has ramifications all the way into the Mandoverse, if you get my meaning, Bo-Katan.
So, and speaking of that, we need to get Katie on the show too. So we'll have to reach out to her. So yeah, I don't know. I one of the main reasons I want to do the show was just for the positivity. We need more of it. The fandom menace is still out there. They've been quiet, but they'll be back. And there was one individual, again, I don't want to name him. But he is a Star Wars theorist. He has a lot of theories about Star Wars, and if he
knows who he is, and anybody else who knows who he is, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Fuck that guy. So, but he said something when the Acolyte, when it was announced that there wouldn't be a second season, one of his first comments was, thankfully we're not going to get a second season. And here's why I have a problem with that. And then we'll wrap for the night. But you say, thankfully, that we're not getting another season. You're saying, thankfully, we're not getting more Star Wars. And that's the problem that I have, because it's like, yes, for you, The Acolyte was awful. It was terrible. It goes against everything that you believe in, and you hated it from top to bottom. But there's a dozen other Star Wars properties you can engage with that you do love. But now, by saying, thankfully, we're not getting more Acolyte, what about those people that were drawn to Star Wars because of the Acolyte? What about the people that were actually fans of the Acolyte before they were fans of Star Wars? You know, they saw the Acolyte for whatever reason, they were drawn to it and they loved it. And then because of that, it opened up this whole new world of Star Wars for them. Are they going to stay? Were they only here for the Acolyte, and now that it's gone, they're gone too? So, you know, never, ever, ever be thankful that we're not getting more Star Wars. Always be thankful for the Star Wars that we get. You don't have to like it. I don't like all Star Wars. I don't like the sequels. I don't hate the sequels, but I don't like them. They're okay. You know, I don't like, you know, every episode of the Clone Wars, you know, but I'm thankful that we're getting something. I'm thankful that we're getting Star Wars, that we have Star Wars, because what I don't like, somebody else is going to love it. And that's going to turn them into a lifelong Star Wars fan. And they're not going to like the stuff that I like. You know, they're going to shit on the hallway scene. And I'm over here like, yeah. So, but that's shit on the hallway scene, but come back for something else that's Star Wars related.
I don't think a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, people who make comments like that, I feel, and even us original trilogy generation types, have sort of forgotten what the dark times really were like. You know, we talk about how there was a gap from Return of the Jedi to the beginning of the expanding universe with the books, and then eventually, and then. But when you look at it chronologically, the dark times was a big gap of time where all of a sudden Star Wars is over. I mean, like, there was no new movies. Droids and Ewoks were a quick blip as a cartoon.
That's it.
And
we were making our own stories. We had the action figures. We had the toys. That's how we kept going.
And we were told, I'm amazed how many people I'm still friends with from like grade school, high school, even college, who I was casual friends with, but we didn't really, like, I was like, the things we didn't connect with. I find out later in life, oh wait, you like my Star Wars, but you're a Star Wars fan. Why didn't we talk about this when we were 10, 11, 12? Oh, right, because Star Wars was over, and only, the nerds, before nerd culture became okay to be popular again, there was that time where, we were all told, shortly after Return of the Jedi, okay, now it's time to grow up, do cool kid things.
But
Star Wars is cool. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, but you're right. Like, Star Wars fell off. Star Wars, it never really went away. I mean, but it did end up, like, in my toy box, Star Wars got replaced with Transformers and G.I. Joe, and I was using Stormtroopers, as fodder for Transformers. I mean, the Decepticons were stomping on Luke Skywalker and kicking Yoda across my bedroom. And so it's like it fell off. Off. And then through the comics, but even the comics were wacky because of the weird licensing. I mean, if you look at some of the old school Star Wars comics, I mean, Luke's wearing like green pants, and Vader's helmet is like funky colors. It's like, and there's reasons behind that. And that's a whole other episode we could talk about, why Marvel Star Wars comics look as freaking psychedelic as they do. There is a reason behind that, but we won't get into that because we're wrapping up.
For another time.
Crash, what you had something to say, it looked like. What else you got?
Well, just kind of agreeing. Like I said, the Clone Wars were at a specific time where a new generation of fans were growing into being Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
I would hate for somebody who says, oh, I'm so glad the Acolyte failed, so we don't ever see that. If somebody had said that about Clone Wars in season 1, and we kind of talked about this when we were rewatching the show, that if there had been a theorist around back then that was making streaming videos, bashing season 1, you wouldn't get season 2, and then the amount of great Star Wars content, just storytelling that would have been lost.
And then Rebels came along, and people were mad about Rebels because of the art style. But again, that's a whole other show. A whole other show, because I was one of those people. I was like, Rebels, that looks dumb. And I didn't like it. I hated it first season. And then I was like, oh, wait, that's good. Now Rebels is probably one of my favorite shows. So anyway.
Hey, for Christmas, I didn't get a lot because I got a new computer. You know what would have been a really great thing to get? I need some Star Wars SafeSpace merch. Where do I get that?
That was a really nice segue. I mean, I had it on my list here. I was going to do it, but thank you for doing the pimping early. So you can head on over to Star Wars. Geez, I can't even. You head over to circleofnerds.com/merch. And as you can see, T to the Oni there is wearing that really sweet Star Wars SafeSpace hoodie. And so yeah, Crash, you can go over there. We've got the Swarzy Curious shirts and hoodies, and we've got the Star Wars SafeSpace logo. We've got some other stuff, other goodies on there too. So yeah, check it out. circleofnerds.com/merch for all of your nerdy apparel needs. So thank you for the plug. And I guess that's your not so subtle way of saying, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
Just helping out where I can.
I appreciate you. Well, then maybe next time you should be we'll make you the brand ambassador, and you can do the pimping.
Okay. Give Tony a break. He's got to keep the holocron. I could be the merch okay.
Yeah. All right. You're the pimper of the merch. So yeah, Tony's the keeper of the holocron. You're the pimper of the merch.
Got it.
So next week, there's the holocron right there. There it is. For all of our listener, you can see it. All right. So for next week, homework, watch the Clone Wars season 4, episodes 1, 2, and 3. So we've got a very interesting way that we're breaking down the Clone Wars this season. So if you head on over to our website, circleofnerds.com/the SWS show, you'll be able to see our roadmap for the rest of our season. So head on over there. Follow us, of course, on all the socials.
And bring a snorkel or it's going to get wet.
What's that?
See, for the homework, bring a snorkel. It's going to get wet.
Oh, yeah, those first few episodes. Especially. Yeah, it gets
That's
a little...
what she said?
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, man. Wait, hold on. There we go. I knew I had the button somewhere. So, so check us out on all the social medias. At the SWS show. I think we're probably more active on TikTok than we are anywhere else. But we're putting out clips of the show everywhere. So whatever your favorite platform is, you can check us out on there. And of course, we're on YouTube. We do post full video episodes of our show on YouTube. And again, that's at the SWS show, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. So that's going to do it. You guys got anything on the way out? Anything?
No, like I said, we're just getting excited about this season. This is going to be a fun ride.
It is going to be a fun ride. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Looking forward to it. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. And of course, as always, a very special thank you to all of our active duty military members and veterans for their service and sacrifice. I absolutely 100% appreciate that. And as always, of course, Star Warriors, if no one does anything nice for you, do something nice to yourself. And we're going to see you guys next week. Bye.